Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new remote training here at RPP. We've been offering remote training for quite some time, but we always required the athlete to come in-house for an assessment. Now we can do the whole assessment online and bring all of our services, pitching, hitting, and strength training to your doorstep. So, if you like what we do and how we do it, go to our website at rocklandpeakperformance.com and click on Remote Training in the toolbar. Thanks. The Behind the Scenes podcast. I'm your host, Nunzio Signore, looking to bring you great dialogue with some of the best in the world of player development. The world of training baseball players has changed dramatically during the past few years, and I'm looking forward to shedding some light here on what's the latest, what's the best, and what's really happening in the world of player development. Thanks for joining me for the ride. Hey guys, welcome to the Behind the Scenes podcast. I'm Nunzio Signore for another edition. Today we've got Brett Merritt. Brett earned his undergraduate degree in sports management from Urbana University in 2007. He coached college baseball for over a decade at pretty much all levels of the game, from JUCO to Division I. Prior to joining the professional ranks with the Red Sox in 2020 as the Salem Red Sox pitching coach. For the past 2 seasons, he has continued as a pitching coach in the Florida Complex League with the Red Sox minor league organization. For those of you that are not familiar with the Florida Complex League, it's a rookie-level minor league baseball league that operates in Florida. Before 2021, it was known as the Gulf Coast League, which is probably what most of us know it as. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Brett Merritt. Brett, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's interesting. I don't really know Brett. I know of Brett, and then I heard of Brett again through my partner, who said, this guy, I saw him on social media. It sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He seems like a really nice guy. And I thought it's really important to find guys that are not only in pro sports, but are at the minor developmental level. I love talking to these guys because they're really, they're the heads of the grassroots of the whole system. Going to Major League Baseball teams and consulting with them, I see these. I go to these camps and I go to minor league places, and it's really it's admirable how they really work on development of the game, which we're going to talk about a little bit. But Brett, I may be wrong here, but I think you've coached at every level of the game except Division II, which is quite a lot of experience. So right off the top, can you talk a bit about your path? You've already done so much at a young age. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I actually did coach 5 years at a division.
Well, there you have it. You've done it all.
I've been a little bit everywhere. Yeah, but basically, when I finished my collegiate playing career, I mean, I didn't have any professional background or anything. One of my college coaches had an opening, kind of asked me to help him as like a student assistant pitching coach. And started there, and then just kind of, like you said, at every level, I kind of bounced around. I did summer ball. I did 3 summers in the New York Collegiate League. I did NAIA.
How did you like being in the Big Apple? How did you like being in New York?
Boy, the summers were gorgeous. I mean,
aren't they beautiful?
Yeah, I was in Glens Falls, which at the time was the New York Collegiate League.
Yeah.
Got a chance to work with a lot of good players. Eric Arnett, who ended up being a first rounder. Brian Moran, who ended up making it to the big leagues a little bit. And some other really good guys from a lot of different universities. It was a really cool experience.
It's really beautiful up here in the summer, but I'm telling you what, where you are right now is the place to be when what's coming up here. It's the Hulk is getting ready to come down on us. And as a New Yorker, I'm currently right now looking for places to buy down in Florida because the winters, dude. The winters up here are no joke. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So basically, like you mentioned, I was at a lot of small schools. I did the volunteer D1 route for a couple of years at University of Toledo, and ended up at a D2 in New Mexico for 5 years. Had some success there at a smaller school and moving some guys on to pro ball. And then my last stop was at College of Central Florida. Zach Bove was the pitching coach there. He ended up getting hired by the Twins in the middle of the year, and it kind of created an opening where I kind of slid in and took his place. And then I was there for less than a year. I had a couple pro teams contacted me, and then ended up with the Red Sox.
Great, man. Can you tell us a couple important things for young coaches to grab while moving up the ranks? I mean, you've started from such a smaller side of things to where you are now. Help prepare for what can they grab along the way, whether it be high school, whether it be Division III, Division II, Division I, rookie ball, whatever it is, to make their way up to minor league. What can they grab along the way that can help them move up the ranks and let them be successful at the next levels?
I think there's a ton to grab. I just really tried to learn something basically everywhere I was at from different coaches. And whenever you're a young assistant, like you have to wear a lot of different hats, right? So at one place, I always did a little bit of the pitching, but at some places I wasn't the pitching coach. Sometimes I was the outfield coach or the catching coach or
Right.
hitting bungles. You get in where you can fit in, right? But I was very lucky to have a lot of good mentors at all of those stops. And there's just so many learning points. So you really, hopefully if you're going into coaching, like you're doing it not for your own benefit, but more or less trying to help kids, reach their career goals and do something that you're passionate about. But I was just able to pick people's brains and just find people that wanted to have good baseball discussions, good strength training discussions. I mean, there's so many people that are passionate and wanting to help. And I guess maybe, growth mindset is like kind of a cool buzzword now, but I think my mind was always open. I had a lot of questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And really just tried to pick people's brains, make my own decisions. But I really learned from a lot of different good coaches.
If anybody that I ever come across who's really good at what they do, they've always had that mindset of like, okay, I'm in a new situation right here. Who's the guy that knows the most? Let me just kind of let me find that guy or guys, and let me just sink in and grab the aha moments from these guys, right? It's like they're
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a growth mindset right there.
Yeah, and I guess I would advise young coaches too. And I moved around quite a bit. Some of it was like, I remember the one time I was at a junior college and the school canceled athletics, so I was only there for like 1 year, and then I moved halfway across the country again. But like those experiences and moving and coaching under different people, under different systems, learning different thoughts of training and practicing made me so much better. Whereas like if I would have just stayed coaching for maybe one of the coaches that I played for in college or summer ball, I still would have learned, but I would have had just one lane.
Yeah, you stagnate.
Yeah, right. So it was good. It was really good for me move around and learn from a lot of different people, a lot of different trains of thought. So that's why even now, like in my current mindset, like there's a lot of experience in our organization with the Red Sox, but I'm constantly I'm scoping out Twitter. I'm going to different conventions, YouTube, just whatever. Try to communicate with the players because sometimes they see stuff on social media before I do, and just pick people's brains.
I don't know if you're going to the bridge at Wake Forest, but I'm going to be presenting there, so I didn't know if you were going down to that one. But
I did not go to. I had no plans to go to that this year, but I believe I heard you present at Pitchapalooza. Was that?
I did that the last 4 years they had it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing it this year. I'm actually Lance is on my podcast tomorrow.
Oh, cool. That'll be interesting. It's good.
Yeah. But I heard you talk about why. You asked why a lot. So an interesting thing for any young listeners that are listening or any parents of young guys, this is a young guy right here, fairly young. He's young compared to me, but he asks a lot of questions. And the first thing he said to me was, I asked why a lot. And when I have my intern coaches in here that come from strength and conditioning schools or pitching interns and stuff, I tell them all the time, if a day goes by in this place with all that's going on in here and you don't ask a question, you are failing yourself. You're definitely not taking advantage of this situation. So it's really, really great to hear you talk about, asking a lot of questions. Another question for you is, how does the focus change from college ball where, it seems like the focus on college is to win, and in minor league development, what the focus may switch to development over winning. How does your mindset change? Your approach to what you do change when the focus has to change from winning games to getting guys better?
Yeah. I mean, I think everything like you just stated and kind of is true, but I think that some of the best colleges like can do development and winning,
Yeah,
or
that's great
you're
too.
hoping to, I mean, it is different, right? Like you said, there you are as a college coach sometimes, depending at the university you're at, like you're tied to those wins and losses and the success. And so there is that, sometimes that win it all cost mentality, but usually you have the fall or whatever to develop. So if you're asking for differences though, yeah, I think that in pro ball you'll see. I know that we as the Red Sox organization, like we still value winning.
Of
It's
course,
certainly
yeah.
not win at all costs. I remember one of the coaches I was with, Johnny Wiggs at Santa Fe College, used to talk about, well, winners win, and it's like a mindset, and it's something that if you're a winner, you're going to be competitive at everything and you want to do well. So it is important, but I mean that we have guidelines. We're looking at, obviously with pitchers like pitch counts and innings and things like that, and you're making sure that everyone gets their work. So at the end of our season, there's not a pitcher with like 130 innings pitched at a rookie ball level, whereas you might see that at like a Division I college where a guy just starts every weekend and goes CG. So you know the differences is maybe just like kind of the checks and balances, and just kind of working within like a system. uh but the winning still is important, just like the development is. Like I feel like it's just all hand in hand, right? You want your players to grow, and you're not, if your players aren't growing individually, like as young men, as physically in their skill set, like if you aren't developing them, it's going to be really hard to win, no matter where you are, what level.
Great. That's actually a great answer. Um, is there, let me try to explain what I'm trying to say here. I tell my guys when they walk in, when a new guy walks in here, and I tell them, when you go in, when I leave here, I put a lot of guys, I send a lot of strength coaches to pro ball. So I tell them, listen, dude, when you get there, don't walk in the door like Superman with an S on your chest. I said, because
Exactly.
you're going to make people feel small. You're going to make people try to think twice about themselves, and nobody really wants to do that. You got to go in like Clark Kent with the schoolboy glasses on, and you got to kind of like, you got to spoon feed them your greatness, you know what I mean, and how much you know. So my question is there a protocol that you took when entering pro ball to let people kind of know what you know without coming off too arrogant or like too big for the room? Do you understand what I'm saying, and
Yeah,
do you even agree with what I'm saying?
I agree with what you're saying. I think that's honestly great advice. For strength coaches, position coaches, whatever. Oh, whenever you're joining a new organization, right? Like it's just, you want to contribute. You're super eager, especially young coaches, right? I feel like that, the young, oh, I can help. We could do this. We could do that. I have this new chart. I have this new drill. Like you want to just jump in and just show everyone that you belong, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's almost like a feel thing, or a little bit, or a barometer. Uh, I know certainly I had a really weird experience because my first year was the COVID year. So I was at spring training and then they sent us home. But it was like,
Right.
when I got there, I'm not going to change the Red Sox pitching program my first week in professional coaching. We have a lot of guys that have
Yeah.
coaching a long time, people that played in the major leagues and done things. Like I'm trying to learn what the system is.
Right.
So how can I work within it, and how can I help to improve it? How can I help the kids mostly? But yeah, good advice for
You got to
everybody.
make their stew first before you could change the recipe, right? You got to actually figure out the kind of stew that they make. Like, a sous chef does not change the recipe of the head chef. You know what I mean? Until he's got it. And then I tell my guys, if you think you can do it better, then you know what you need to do. You need to learn from me, and then you need to take it how you would change it and go open up your own spot and do your own thing. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's valid. That's how life goes. So that was really good advice that I think is Great.
Yeah, every coach wants to be impactful, but just
Yeah.
finding your lane, and
Yeah.
I don't want to tell people like, hey, stay down, just stay in your lane, but take a moment to listen to people and then form your own opinions, and then the more you get to know your coworkers, really in any profession, then you kind of will become more of a team member.
As a as an older guy, and I've been in this business, the private sector, a long time. I've seen a lot of, my influx of guys that come in, they learn, they do internships with me, they work for me, I employ them, and then after about 3 or 4 years, it's time for them to go on and move on, and they want to go into pro ball. Most of them is why they come here, and I send them in. But when they get here, I've noticed a difference in the 22-year-old guy after college, or 24 if he's got his master's, who comes in here. Um, a lot of times I tell them, listen, guys, I understand you know a lot. I understand you're in college. I understand you're a smart guy. That's why I hired you. But I'm not trying to fix anything in my business. It's not broke. I'm open to hearing suggestions. And they always say, yeah. And then 60% of them within 1 year think they have it all figured out. Right. And it starts to go a little left. And I've gotten to the point now where I can see that really hungry young guy. And if I really think he's going to be a great guy and has a lot of promise, I'll tell him early, yo, dude, all right, slow down. Just like harness that energy and just try to trust me for a minute and just listen. You know what I mean? And you will realize that you were getting ready to say something that you in 6 months would feel dumb that you even said. So you're really going, it helps them to just slow down and think before you say something, which is very, very hard nowadays
Absolutely,
to find
absolutely.
guys like that. Um, what differences do you see as the game gets more competitive from level to level? What are some of the big things, whether it be um, ability or work ethic, whatever you think it is?
Yeah, I think those are two pretty obvious ones. I think the preparation to just seeing the way guys go about their routines and things like that on a day-to-day basis, and know maybe the intimacy with their own body and their own routine, and understanding what they need to get themselves ready. And it can for me, it can vary from guy to guy, but just them knowing themselves, and the amount of ownership that they take in the things that they do, and what they work on, is really fun to watch.
Awesome. Okay, here's one for you. I spend time once in a while going to minor league facilities and looking at systems, and uh, what I see a lot of times is these guys hire great guys. They hire great pitching coaches. No Major League Baseball team is hiring bunk coaches, right?
Hmm.
So I spend time with the pitching coaches, and they're very knowledgeable guys and great guys. I spend time with the strength coaches, very knowledgeable, great guys. The PTs, very knowledgeable, great guys. A thing I kind of see that I think would make player development a lot better is a little bit better crosstalk between the actual adaptations. I think that if pitching coaches understood a little bit more about strength training, and the teams made that a priority, and the strength coaches knew a little bit more about good pitching mechanics, and the PTs understood pitching mechanics a little bit more, I think I'm not saying they have to be able to know as much as a coach, but you understand what I'm saying. What is your feelings? What is your feeling on that?
Yeah, man, I feel like you and me are on the same page here a lot. But the integration and the collaboration, when you have all those people working together towards the same goal, like that's big. I know at one of the small schools I was at, I had a strength coach, Larry Venardo, who's at UNLV right now. He does volleyball, but he had never worked with baseball players before, and he was hungry for knowledge. Like, he had been a strength coach, he had a more of a football background. And when he came in, and he's like, okay, and we started looking at some of the different resources available, and he's like, well, what do you want pitchers to do? How do you want them to move? Like, to me, that was a breath of fresh air, because I
He
had
was
that
taking an interest.
collaboration.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
taking an interest.
and I had been at a lot of small schools, and sometimes you end up at those schools, and like I was like writing my own workouts for the pitchers or getting templates off of, you know, different people, outsourcing, whatever. So I had an interest in those type of things, but I wasn't, you know, quite certified to do all that stuff. But it was nice, right? And so now you come into pro ball, and I know something that we work on or harp on constantly is like the communication between strength and conditioning, and you know the skills side, and then the rehab and the medical side and things like that. So yeah, like you have to be on the same page, and like we, without getting too far into it, like we have different apps and different things where we communicate and we log a lot of the stuff for the players. So if I see maybe a movement pattern or something that I think a player is struggling with or they can get better at, then maybe I can communicate, you know, with the strength coaches that way or whatever. So
Uh,
uh,
I always thought that I always try to mention to teams once in a while that I think it's a great idea if once a week, you guys have a staff meeting between the PTs, the strength coaches, and the pitching coaches, and maybe this week the pitching coaches present on pitching mechanics, and next week the strength coaches present to everybody on strength adaptations, or maybe just you know, what signs a pitching coach could see that a guy needs strength somewhere, or with the PTs can come in and they could talk about movement and mobility, and you know, how the assessment correlates to what you could see on the mound. A lot of times in here, when we get a player in here and we put him on the table for 30 minutes and we look at all his movement, I can almost tell you exactly what, I mean, I'm wrong sometimes, but I can almost tell you exactly what that guy's mechanics are going to look like by what I see on the table, as far as ranges of motions in his hip, his T-spine mobility, his ER, IR. It's and I think that knowing a little bit of that crosstalk can be really, really valuable to not only to make guys better, but to help prevent some injury as well. So, biggest issues you see with minor leaguers, if it can be generalized, your overall scope of like, you know, a 300-mile view from top, what do you kind of experience a lot with the young minor league guys coming in? The biggest issues that you see?
I mean, I think that some of the issues that we see here at this level are the same issues that I encountered maybe coaching college kids. Is like baseball's so hard, and it's just a game of failure, and helping those kids deal with the failure. And then like we'll have kids here that are throwing 100 miles an hour, but they don't believe they're good because they gave up 5 hits yesterday or something like that. So it's like, hey, trust me, man, like you're nasty, like you could be a big leaguer, you know, but you know, here's some reasons why did you struggle even though you're throwing 100 miles an hour or whatever. So um baseball's tough. It's tough to be confident when you're, you know, being successful is still very just a little fraction of that window or whatever. So uh, to me, you know, that's one of the biggest things that we see. I also like at this level, and you gave a fantastic introduction to like the FCL, but also a lot of kids coming over to this country for the first time.
This is what I was going to talk about. Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
that's good. Like I mean, think about it. And I just spent a week down in the DR at our academy, and I can speak a little, but I can't, you know, carry on a conversation. And so imagine those kids coming here for the first time and like trying to communicate with their coaches, trying to communicate with other players, and then you know you're back at the hotel, and then you're trying to order food to eat. I mean, there's like a lot of things like that.
And you're dealing with really, really kids who have been throwing objects since they were young, and they're
Mhm.
truly elastic and they're truly gifted genetically,
Yeah,
and they come here, and then you get them in rookie at 18, 19 years old, and they don't even know how to squat
it's
because
it's unbelievable.
it's unbelievable when I go into a rookie camp and I see guys who don't even have a squat pattern. They throw 98 miles an hour, and they're thin and
Yep.
they're very weak. And I'm thinking to myself, this is why we probably see a lot of injuries, because they're exasperating those movements. And at one point, if they don't develop more strength, throwing at that velocity with not a lot of basis of strength, eventually that credit card, if you keep bending it, it creases and it still works. But one day it just snaps in half and it doesn't work anymore. So I think a big challenge that I saw with to my answer to the question I asked you, one of the big issues that I saw when I go see minor league teams is you have these super talented guys that don't have weight room experience due to maybe their lack of having it in the country where they're at. And Major League Baseball right now is doing a really great job of getting a grassroots program right now over there to get these guys some more strength training. And I think that's an unbelievably great move in the right direction, so.
Yeah, I think our strength guys do a pretty good job of educating those kids. But like you said, I guess maybe they have non-traditional training, right? Or, I mean, for whatever reason, their skill level is really high. It's not that they're not strong; they just have never been taught how to squat or deadlift or
Yeah. No, and they absolutely can do it, and they're elite movers, but they're also elite compensators. I mean, they know how to compensate and get through something. I'm not going to talk too much about technology with you, but I do want to know what your feelings are as far as using data to help grab some numbers and help guide you along with what you see with your eyes, and how much of a believer you are in using data and implementing data.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in it. I don't think I would be here without it. When I was coaching, especially towards the end of my collegiate career, like we started to gravitate towards the Rapsodo numbers, which was still very new at the time. I know in the strength room we were using is one of the things that measures the bar velocity. It was like a Velcro
BBT,
strap.
yeah, push band.
Yeah, the push band, right? Bluetooth on your phone, it worked beautifully, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, having measurable feedback for kids, I think, is huge. So, if nothing else, I used to say like you could tell me that I'm full of BS or whatever, but hey, let's try this changeup grip, and you can measure that and see maybe the changeup grip I show you makes it worse, maybe it makes it better. And there's obviously a lot more metrics and things going on than just grips and things like that. But without getting too technical, like you can try to make an adjustment and see if possibly if it's helping you or not. And then there's so many things now, so many resources available in the weight room. Like, wow, I wish we would have had something to measure bar speed when I was in college or something.
So bar speed is, I have a book out on VBT on bar speed that you can get on Amazon. And bar speed was, when people ask me, what is the biggest thing that changed the performance of your pitchers? We train up over 100 pitchers a year here. Bar speed in the weight room. I don't even have to think for 2 seconds about the answer. Training with bar speeds allows guys to get right in the adaptation you're trying to train, depending upon what time of year it is. And it also, a guy comes in, he's a little shot, or a guy came in and he threw a hard pen the day before. He may not be able to move that weight, and the speed will tell you. And you listen to the speed, and you take weight off the bar, so you can actually train at the velocity or the intensity you're trying to train at.
Do you always stay in that range then?
We always, okay. So like say in phase, the strength phase, we're training max strength maybe a month after. We do tissue prep first, and then we go into a strength phase. That strength phase, that has low bar speeds, because obviously the heavier the weight, the heavier the load, the slower you're going to move it. And I look for bar speeds like say we're looking between 0.35 and 0.5 meters per second. That correlates to roughly 80 to 95% of your 1 rep max. And when we're in that phase, everybody's trying to stay within that range, 0.35 to 0.5. So you throw a pen the day before, and then you come in and you put on 350 on the trap bar, and you pull it, and you get 0.30. Okay, and your velocity that you had last week was 0.40. You're under that range. So I would take weight off the bar, and I would go back to where I'm the speed I'm trying to get at. And today, my 85%, 4.40 is 85%. My 85% today is 310. It's not 350. That's okay. You know what I mean? 1 rep maxes fluctuate up to 18 to 20% a day based off of fatigue. So it's great when you get a speed and you know what that speed is, because you know what, you might come in that day and you might pull it at 0.6 and you're like, wow, I'm strong today. I'm getting stronger. Put weight on the bar, find the speed. The speed will tell you whether to add weight, take weight on or off, or stay the same. And as we get closer to the in season, those speeds get faster, right? And that's the biggest. It's great that you said, I wish I had bar speed, because I wish I had bar speed when I was
Yeah.
in college and in school. It's an amazing, it's a friggin' game changer. But that's great that you like to use tech. I also, not only to help us make a guy better, but I think that things like mocap, taking a mocap with a guy at the beginning of camp, and then taking one at the end. And then if the guy starts to struggle during the year, you can come in and take another one and you can see what changed,
Absolutely.
without trying to, we don't have to really wonder what changed. We can just look at what changed, right?
Yeah,
And then,
I think some of the players, like the initial concern with like a lot of the different metrics and stuff, is that you're looking at those things and you're trying to see like, oh, well, this is what's wrong with you. But I like what you're saying. Like, you can look at it like, what if we captured what you're doing when you're going really good as a hitter or
yeah,
a pitcher, and
100.
then when you start to struggle, let's go back at that and see how you were moving better or whatever. Like that makes a ton of sense to me.
1000%. And also being able to see the velocity to torque ratio. Are you throwing 95 miles an hour, but your torque is, 105 newtons or 120 newtons, or newtons, that meter, that's really, really, that's a game changer as far as the ratio of velocity to torque. So there's things we can see if guys are going to hurt themselves. This is an interesting question for you. You've got guys that are already playing minor league ball, and what about the guys that are throwing 93 to 95 miles per hour and they're not playing pro ball? What's missing? What advice do you have? Like, there's a lot of guys that are throwing as hard as anybody and they're not playing pro ball. What can you say about that?
I mean, that's another great question. I think when I was coaching in college, I'd be hitting my head against the wall, asking myself the same question. So now, looking at things on this side, right? Like the velocity is so important to getting drafted, and then say, I guess you're talking about a kid maybe that has finished his collegiate playing career, or like someone that's still in college, or like
Somebody that's in college, somebody who's got the numbers, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Somebody
yeah,
who's
yeah.
got the numbers, and guys are getting drafted all around him with
Yep.
those numbers.
It's so tough now, and the draft now is condensed more than it's ever been before with the 20 rounds. Uh, just don't give up, man. That sounds super generic, but kids in that situation, like if for some reason you don't get drafted, like I see, like we have the MLB, the draft league now, which is really cool. I wish we did something like the NFL where we did like a combine. I think that there's a lot of really great players out there that are maybe just not getting seen. And in my experience, I've seen some really good players at NAIA, D2, JUCOs, and that would go back to one of my college coaching like little speeches or spiels. But it's like the best players don't always play at Division One. It's the best guys with the best academics, right? So it's like,
Right.
if you want to be exposed at the maximum level, and you're 12 and 14 years old, I would do whatever I can to have good grades in school. Maybe not 4.0, but don't limit your opportunities, right?
Right. That's
But
great.
then as you get to that age now, where like you said, you're in college, you're a junior, senior, fifth year senior, COVID senior, whatever is going on, or even an independent ball. I would try to utilize social media, do whatever I can to expose myself, go different facilities where you can get metrics. If you're looking at colleges and you're trying to make a decision on what college to go to, if there's a school that has all the TrackMan and all the different metrics like that, like I think that pro teams are using that stuff and looking at it. So it's like, try to use the numbers to your advantage. If you have good metrics, go as many places as you can to expose yourself and show people that you can do that. And then if you throw 95, if you throw even 100 or whatever, and you can't get people to pick you up, you just have to go somewhere and prove it, man. Play wherever you can.
Great advice. I had to ask that question because I've got a lot of guys in here that are throwing in the mid 90s, and
Yeah,
they watch the draft go by, and sometimes they're wondering where they were or why they were 24th round instead of
yeah.
11th.
I
And
know one very honest answer I could give is that, like, when I was coaching, I didn't understand all the pitch metrics, and I had 6'3" kids throwing 92, 95, and I was teaching them to hit the string and pitch down on the zone, and it was probably hurting them, and so I think what you're starting to see now is kids that were not very successful in college, but they're going to get drafted because they can flash some impressive metrics or something, and then they get into pro ball and we teach them how to pitch to their profile. I think that's not like a big secret. I think a lot of pro teams are doing that.
great. And one last question today. Just give us some advice to some college guys trying to break into the minor leagues.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of was my advice, is like, go when you're looking at your schools, you want to look at places that are typically like developing players or getting them exposure to the pro level, and so the pro scouting stuff works in a lot of different funny ways, and sometimes location, sometimes division, but try to go somewhere where you can get exposure and then try to create exposure for yourself. I think social media is a powerful tool right now. And a saying I really like is closed mouths don't get fed. So just keep opening it and keep asking for opportunities, because if you have no opportunity for pro ball, and you ask, then the worst thing that can happen is you still have no opportunity. But do whatever you can to be proactive, reach out. And I think that, once again, like, looking back at things I wish I had, like, I wish I had social media in college and stuff to kind of just, hey, here I am,
Yeah, man. We've been talking to Brett Merritt. Brett, thanks so much for being on the show. How can people reach out to you? How can they check you out?
Uh, I when I was in college, I was way more active on the social media game. I'm not as much right now, but I do have the Twitter handle, which is I think how we came in contact originally. So it's big BIG, then my last name MERRITT, and then the number 4 and the letter U. Big Merit for you. That's on Twitter right now, at least until I have to pay for it, probably. But right now I'm on there, and I do my best to answer questions and stuff like that.
That's great. And you can reach me at Nunzio Signore on Twitter, and my facility at RPP _baseball on both Twitter and Instagram. Our website is www.rocklandpeakperformance.com. If you're interested on bar speeds and training throughout the year with bar speeds, you can check out my book, Velocity-Based Training, How to Apply Science, Technology, and Data to Maximize Performance. It's published by Human Kinetics, and you can get it on Amazon or through them. One more time, Brett, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And we'll catch you on the next one.